And then we started thinking 10 years from now, how do we have an AI that doesn't end up in a Skynet, like a Terminator type of situation?
What inspired you to build a blockchain focused on AI specifically?
I believe that AI should be in the hands of communities that steer their own destiny versus a handful of companies that then just decide all of it for us. We were the first company to train 107 billion parameter model, fully decentralized. Never been done before. AI systems need to be aligned in such a way where they don't have an opportunity to cheat.
Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Tech Interleaded Podcast. I'm Seb, VP of Strategy at Luna PR, and I am honored to be joined by Michael Heinrich from Zero G Labs.
Nice
Michael,
to be
it's
here.
An absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Of course.
If you want to run a very quick intro, everybody probably knows who you are, but just elevator pitch, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Michael, co-founder and CEO of Zero G Labs, and now, as of a few days ago, also the executive chairman of a digital asset treasury called Zero Stack.
Okay.
So very exciting.
Congrats.
And personal background, technology, SAP, Microsoft, switched over to the business side, Bain Company, Bridgewater Associates, started a Y Combinator-backed unicorn company, and then built Zero G since 2023.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, I have to start with a question that has nothing to do with work. On your LinkedIn, you say that you're focused on making the world more blissful. What does that mean, and how are you doing that?
So I personally invested in a lot of self-development. When I was at Bridgewater, I learned transcendental meditation, for example, and that's brought me a tremendous amount of just like bliss and happiness and inner peace. And then I did a lot of things like landmark education, interpersonal dynamics, nonviolent communication. And so all of that just made me fundamentally a better human being. And anything that I do, I want to infuse that type of energy into it. Now, at Zero G, our mission is to make AI a public good. And fundamentally, I believe that AI should be in the hands of communities that steer their own destiny versus a handful of companies that then just decide all of it for us, like the value system we should use, the censorship that we should use, how AI should behave, like reap all the economic benefit and so on. So fundamentally it comes from that basis of self-development that then the mission kind of was inspired by that.
Awesome. That's fantastic. So tell us about Zero G and like what inspired you to build a blockchain focused on AI specifically?
Yeah, so when we got started, we saw the rise of ChatGPT 3 happen effectively. And then we started thinking 10 years from now, if we start using AI in mission critical systems like factories, transportation systems, governance systems, administrative systems, like the scope of AI's influence will increase. How do we have an AI that doesn't end up in a Skynet, like a Terminator type of situation? And we then fundamentally thought these AI systems need to be aligned in such a way where they don't have an opportunity to cheat. And so blockchain-based systems are ideal for that. There's slashing conditions, there's incentive conditions, there's ways of aligning AI on these systems to keep things transparent, to utilize things like provenance. And so we thought this was, as opposed to this black box AI system, the right solution for mission-critical AI systems.
Awesome. That's fantastic. And in your mind, like what are the biggest challenges making AI models and data both decentralized but also accessible to all?
There's quite a few challenges. First is the infrastructure itself. If you want AI that's verifiable, because you can't just trust a company to do that for you, you want to be able to verify yourself what's happening. What data are they using? Like who's labeling the data? What's the model that you're getting in production? And if you're used to developing in the centralized or black box AI system, you expect your model to have very fast response time. If you're also verifying at the same time through zero knowledge proof, if it's going to take you 30 minutes before you get a response, nobody wants to use these systems unless there's a specific use case for that. And so even just the verification is a hard problem. And so we found that currently the best trade-off is trusted execution environment. So it's a hardware-based solution because there's almost no overhead. Then there's it's a distributed network. There's a lot of latency conditions. There's a lot of potential uptime issues. How do you train something as big as an AI model in an environment like that? You have to think about all of these things. You have to think about batch processing. You have to think about grid locks on the system. So there's a lot of big technical challenges that have to be thought through. Now, we were the first company to train a 107 billion parameter model, fully decentralized. Never been done before. 3 times the previous kind of record. And so we had to basically figure out a lot of things. We used research that Google did and improved it 357x fold. And so
That's an insane stat. That's insane.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So technology and research are very much front and center, but then it becomes one of how do we make the infrastructure so easy to access that anybody in Web 2 can be up and running in a few minutes? Yeah. That's the next challenge. We're not there yet. Probably sometime late next year, I think we can be there, but yeah, working towards it.
That's a perfect transition to my last question for you, which is that Zero-G just launched Aristotle mainnet, right? With one of the largest day one ecosystems for decentralized AI. I want to know, as much as you can tell me, what's the next milestone you're building towards?
So right now it becomes all about building a deep ecosystem. We need to build a liquidity layer. We need to build a deep application layer. We consistently need to build on the technology and research. We are very happy with the current performance, but we still want to 10x that because we need massive Web 2 applications to be able to migrate to Web 3. That's not possible right now. And then finally, there's the ownership layer or the decentralized governance layer. And so, for example, we're one of the first companies to have a DUNA, which is a legal wrapper on top of a DAO with a security council. And so that's all going to be announced in the future. So those are the 4 pieces that we're deeply focused on. And you'll see lots of news around that over the next 12 months.
Exciting times ahead. And then lastly, because when you introduced yourself, you kind of mentioned something about DATCOs, right? And so I was just in New York 2 weeks ago. Luna PR, we're trying to branch out there, build our team there because that's where everything is right now, right? We were on Wall Street. DATCOs is the talk of the town. It's a massive narrative, right? And I want to know, from your perspective, this narrative of DATCOs being kind of the current trend, talk to me about that trend. Is it a fad? Is it here to stay? And what value do you see that for the broader Web3 ecosystem?
It's definitely a trend because the way it's engineered is that it's a perfect complement to a token. Now, the quality of the token matters a lot too, of course, because if there's no underlying either mimetic value or kind of a real business model, then it's also a dangerous kind of construct, of course. So besides that, though, the DAT stands for Digital Asset Treasury. Its sole purpose is to accumulate and buy tokens off the market or OTC to increase the holdings of token per share. And then with that, create a better than the underlying token investment for people on Wall Street, effectively. And so it's this kind of win-win situation where you create buy pressure from institutions and retail users on the equity side for a token, but then you give exposure of the underlying token to people who can't actually get exposure to it. And so it's this very synergistic vehicle, and therefore I think it's a trend. Now, in a bear market, there's likely going to be some consolidation because also depends on how you run the DAT. And I have some amazing partners in this. The people that fully backed this architected DFDV, which was actually the first and one of the largest Solana DATs and one of the most successful DATs in history after MicroStrategy, I think number 2 according to MSNBC. So very strong talent that's actually building this with us. And so I think it's going to be a really great synergy for the ecosystem over time.
That's amazing, Michael. I know I've just taken up a lot of your time. It was an absolute pleasure meeting you. And thank you very much for taking the time.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Mike.